Hey guys, Karen is for the Vampire Diaries, Season 7, Episode 5, Live Through This. And I was definitely looking forward to this episode, especially because last week's episode definitely wasn't the best. I thought last week's episode was kind of a step down in quality from what we've been having, and this episode was the best episode of the season. It was pretty close to perfect. I really thought this episode was great. They are definitely starting to utilize the storyline well, and I think they're definitely finding their footing. Especially in this episode, it seemed like they've found their footing. They know what works and what doesn't, and just the fact that Mary Lou and Nora weren't even in this episode should tell you that I think they know what works and what's not. So let's just get in this episode. A lot happened in this episode, really. A lot happened. A really great twist in this episode, I have to say. I was really impressed by the twist, but let's just get into it. Which, we do see a flash forward here. Probably the most craziest and unexpected flash forward we've have. Because, of course, the two people we have not seen are the three people are Bonnie, Matt, and Enzo. And we see Bonnie and Enzo in this week's flashback. And basically we see flash forward. Bonnie is in group therapy in some sort of mental hospital, and she says she's been thinking about the past and how one stupid decision can screw up your life. She says she made a mistake and lost someone she loved, and she says she wishes she could take it back, and she says she just has to live with it. The therapist thanks her, and Bonnie then finds Enzo waiting in her room. He says she can't keep hiding there. She runs him. They kiss passionately after he calls her his lover, and, I have no idea what's going on there. Bonnie and Enzo are surprisingly together in this future. Why? I don't know. They've never had anything, but clearly something's going to happen, and it just makes me more and more interested in these flash forwards. I really love where we're headed with them. My only thing is, now that we know pretty much where everyone is, where do they take these? Like, you have to, you have to think that they're going to keep showing them, so where are we taking all this? Is this all going to add up somehow? I mean, this has to connect somehow. Obviously, it has to. So Alaric sits watching Jo in her bed, and of course, Jo is now awake. She's now awake, and she's, she's now alive, and Bonnie shows up, asks how she's doing. He says she's been asleep 12 hours. She has a box, and he asks if it's food, but it's term papers. He asks if she wants to be his TA and grade the papers. She says she needs to focus on finding how she brought Jo back from the dead. Bonnie says she wants to know what kind of magic this is, just in case, and asks for the Phoenix Stone to study it, and Alaric hands it over. Because, of course, she's having these visions, and it's connected to the Phoenix Stone, so she knows there's something more going on with this Phoenix Stone. And boy, was she right. We'll get into that. Bonnie heads out. Jo opens her eyes. Alaric comes over, asks how she's feeling. Jo says she's starving. Stefan then spoons Caroline, and he asks if it's torture. She says she's happy to lie there and do nothing. He says she's probably making a mental to-do list today. Damon bursts in and annoys them, and I was upset with this because it's directly a ripoff of Damon and Elena. I mean, Stefan and Elena. You remember when Stefan and Elena slept together one time? Damon, burst in. This was basically paying homage to that, but I found it more of just a ripoff. It's not paying homage if you do the same exact thing. It's really not. So, he brought coffee. Caroline storms out. I will admit, it was just as funny. I mean, it's great that we have this, funny Damon back. Stefan asks why he's there. Damon says they should celebrate since he's with Caroline. Damon has Elena safely stashed, and Alaric raised his wife from the dead. So, now they can move on, and Damon says he's turning over a new leaf and needs his brother's help. He wants to go interrogate Valerie, but Caroline doesn't like this idea at all, obviously, because, Caroline knows that Stefan and Valerie had chemistry, and Caroline tells Damon that Valerie and Stefan used to have a thing. Damon is stunned when he realizes that this is the girl that took Stefan's virginity, and the way that Damon reacted to that was just, that's exactly how a brother would react, and I love that. Caroline says Stefan should go catch up with her. She heads out, tells him to have fun, and then basically Enzo gives a blood bag to Oscar, who's still starving. Lily thanks Enzo for taking care of him. The maid, Lucy, brings in some flowers, and Lily says that Julien will arrive home today and tells Enzo that it's a good thing. She says he and Julien should get along fine and he shouldn't have to worry about him, and basically she's going to bring back Julien no matter what. Mary Louise and Nora are quickly in this episode, but they're just there to check on Oscar. Nora asks if he remembers her, and she says Julian's coming back and life will get fun. This is what we need to see in Mary Lou and Nora, because they're simply not interesting characters. They're a lesbian couple, that's it. There's nothing else that's interesting to them. So, if they give them this kind of stuff in each episode, fine, honestly. If they're background, I want them to be background, because they're just not that interesting when you make them central characters like they did last week. So, Nora asks Oscar if he remembers her, and she says Julian's coming back and life will get fun. If you remember, Oscar's lost his memory. He doesn't remember, who he is. He doesn't remember his name, where he's come from, his family, nothing. So they're trying to jog his memory as best as they can. So Lily asks Enzo to babysit Oscar while the three of them go out for an errand. And of course, Oscar's like a baby because he doesn't remember anything, so Enzo has to treat him like one. And she also wonders where Valerie is. Enzo calls Valerie, who's driving to try and find Julien. And of course, they're working together right now. They're going to try to find Julien. And Enzo says the other three are planning to do a locator spell to find Julien. The phone cuts off, and Valerie almost hits Damon, who's standing in the road. And we realize that Valerie stole Matt's car. She stole it. And so he basically called Damon. He asked why she killed Oscar and framed him, and Valerie denies doing that. She had nothing to do with killing Oscar, which of course she did, and Damon says maybe another heretic did it, then says he's going to call Lily. She used magic on him and threatens to kill him, but then Stefan is there and tells her to stop torturing his brother, tell him what's going on, and it's as awkward as you can imagine. That first encounter that they have is just great. I know this was not as great as the originals, obviously. I did not find this encounter of Valerie and Stefan to be nearly as good as the originals one. The originals of Vampire Diaries both did sort of the same kind of episode, and I think the originals handled a lot better, because while we did get, what happened in the Vampire Diaries, we don't really get any new information here, except for one very crucial part of information. Everything else we already knew. So Bonnie finds Caroline studying in their room and asks if Stefan is gone. Bonnie jokes that at least Caroline has a boyfriend, and she says she sent Stefan to hang out with his first love, Valerie. Bonnie asks if she's secure of crazy. I thought that was funny that she said that. Caroline says she wants Stefan to clear away the old drama and move on with his life, from his life with a clean slate. And I do agree that it probably is a good thing to do, but it was still an idiotic thing to do. I mean, seriously, you didn't think there was anything wrong with this? Bonnie says she inspired her. She's going to talk to a heretic she just brought back to life. Then she might go find a guy, and I thought that was funny that she said that, because, Bonnie's the only one without a guy. Well, right now, at least, because we know she's going to have Enzo, and we know that there's supposedly some guy in her life, so, well, there was at least. So Valerie's in the car with Damon and Stefan, and Damon is quizzing her on Julien. She tells him about a massacre Julien committed back in the day on Christmas, and Lily says that, she still loves him. And Damon says Stefan has done the same when he was a Ripper. Then Damon asks how Stefan and Valerie met, then talks about how sad Stefan was writing pitiful stuff in his journal, because of course Damon never knew about Stefan and Valerie. And that's the one thing I think this storyline didn't have that the originals did. The one thing that I don't understand about this is what happened to that whole thing with, Lily wanting to turn Damon and Stefan against each other. That has not been brought up for episodes now. It has not been brought up since, episode 3, and, they're obviously not turning against each other, so I don't know if that's still happening, if that's still a thing, but it doesn't seem like that's really a thing right now. So that's really my one thing here. That's why this episode wasn't perfect, because there are definitely some plot holes. Stefan says Valerie was a spy for Lily, and it was all a game. She says they have to stop Julien at all costs. Valerie's annoyed by both of them. And Joe eats breakfast, then asks what that is, and he says a TV. And I really like seeing Joe, completely lost, not really knowing what anything was. It was a really great scene. She has lost all of her functional memories. She doesn't know who he is or anything about the world. She likes the food. He explains what delivery food is. He tells her she doesn't eat meat, and she asks why, then tries some. He pops open a bottle of wine and cuts his hand. She stares at the blood, then offers to bandage the wound. She goes get bandages where he tells her they are. He's very hopeful, and, he's really thinking that things are going to be the same between him and Joe. He really thinks that he can help her out if he jogs her memory. They can get married again, and things can be great for them again, and I really felt bad for Alaric here. This is just a man he was living in the past, and, we're all guilty of that. I think we all live in the past at some point, and that's exactly what Alaric is doing here, and it's very much what Damon is doing as well. He just wants to reconnect with his true love, and it's really sad that he can't. However, we do know that he has kids in this, flash, flash forward. So does that mean that he does end up with Joe? I'm not really sure. We'll have to see. Caroline calls Stefan and Damon calls her Care Bear, then says he won't let the former flames fool around. Stefan has Caroline to dinner. She asks if he feels guilty, and he says no. He just realized he hasn't taken her on a date, so why not take her out now? And she says she's sorry for making him go on this weird road trip. He reassures her that things are going okay. She asks if he's okay, and he says he will be, and asks what time he can pick her up. She says 8, and she likes daisies in case he wants to bring flowers. He ends the call, and they plan on going on this date. So Valerie then hands Damon a gas can, says she needs it filled up so she can burn his body, and she tells him that Julien has been dead since 1903, and that's pretty crazy. So Bonnie comes to the Salvatore place. Enzo says get out. She says no, then looks around for Oscar, and Enzo torments her verbally and tells her that she's lucky Damon hasn't killed her to get to Elena. She mocks him for begging attention from Lily. She goes to kick her out, then hears screams. It's interesting to see these two each other's throats because, of course, again, now knowing that they're going to end up together in the future, I just don't see how it's possible. I mean, it's going to happen, but, you know, again, that's like 3 years from now, but I don't know what's going to happen in 3 years. So Oscar's eating the maid. Enzo throws him off her, then says, don't eat the help. Enzo gives the maid blood, compels her to take a day off and forget this. Bonnie asks Oscar if he remembers her. He says she got him out of the dark room in the basement. He says he's still hungry. Bonnie says get a grip. She asks about the Phoenix Stone, and she shows it to him, and he says she got it him out of the stone. Valerie takes them to where Oscar stashed Julien's body. Damon tries to break into the door. He tells them to come on and let's start this campfire. And inside the storage place, they see loads of caskets. And she says Oscar's known for stupid pranks. And Valerie says that Lily is determined to reunite Julien's body with his soul. They deny knowing about the Phoenix Stone. And she says it's stuffed full of old vampire souls. And she says all they did was jam a vampire soul into his body. They didn't raise Oscar from the dead. And that's awesome. I mean, we've known that this Phoenix Stone has been evil from day one. We know there's been some bad side effects to it. We know that, we've known that there's something really bad about it. And obviously, it's been giving Bonnie weird omens. And this makes sense why. Because obviously, they've just brought back vampire souls. And it's not actually Oscar that's in the body. It's the body of Oscar, but the soul in his body is not Oscar. So I think it definitely is very interesting. So Damon calls Bonnie right away, obviously freaking out because he now realizes that Alaric did not bring back Joe. He asks about Alaric and Joe, and then he says she needs to tell Alaric that's not Joe. He explains it's not a resurrection stone, it's a holding cell for vampire souls, and one is in Oscar and one is in Joe now. So I thought this made things just really, really interesting, definitely. They took a plot that could have been really generic and made it something a lot more interesting. I definitely really like this. And granted, yes, it is kind of like The Traveler. I will admit that is like The Traveler where, you can just go into someone else's body. But it's different because this is, dead people, possesses them. It's really interesting. So Damon tells Bonnie to tell Oscar, then get out of the house fast, and he says he's trying to be a better person. Enzo tells Bonnie he found more blood for Oscar, then asks where she found the stone, and says Lily has been looking for one like it. Oscar says he's not going back and tries to bite Bonnie. Enzo beats him down. Bonnie admits that Oscar's not himself, and by the way, guys, I knew, obviously, that this was not going well for Alaric, because that coroner seemed extremely shady from day one, so I knew that there was no way that this was actually going to work out. So my complaint with them doing things way too easily is over, because this just, was a lot harder, and there was a lot more to it than we thought, and I love that. So Enzo beats him down. Bonnie admits that Oscar's not himself. Oscar goes nuts, said that's not his name. He realizes he can use magic, and Bonnie tells Enzo to run. Enzo grabs the stones and is behind her. Alaric asks Joe if she wants to take a walk to try and stir memories, and of course, he doesn't know what's really going on with her. She's holding a gun, asks what happened, and is now looking at the bloody wedding dress. She asks again what happened. He says her brother stabbed her, and he couldn't get her to the hospital in time. He says he'll explain it later, and then says it's crazy. She needs time to process it, and Joe remembers being stabbed in the heart, and he says no, it was from behind. So that's a clue right away this is not Joe, because this vampire soul was stabbed in the heart, and Joe wasn't stabbed in the heart. So, he can tell there's something off here, and she says that she, was stabbed in the heart. Then she says she was stabbed in the heart and hyperventilates. Joe holds up the gun, says stay away, then runs out. Stefan and Valerie look through all the coffins, and he asks why Valerie worked that Vervain spell on Caroline, and she asks if he wants to hear that she's evil and likes people to suffer, and he says she turned his life upside down back then and has gone after his girlfriend now, and that's the thing with Valerie, she's not an evil person. She just really wants Stefan and can't get over him. And, just for whatever reason, she can't get over him. So Stefan finds a locked coffin. They drag it out. She works the spell to unseal it. She opens it, and there he is. And Damon comes over, says he doesn't look dead. She says his body was preserved by magic. She spits on Julien and dumps gas on him, starts a fire spell. It sparks at him, won't restart. Nora and Mary Louise are there. Damon says now it's a party. Now it's a party that the Mean Girls are here. They call Lily over. They They tell her that Valerie's over here trying to kill the love of your life. Valerie stands down at Julien, closes the coffin. She tells Nora and Mary Lou to get to meet her in the car. She tells Oscar that they use the ring Valerie left to find him. And Valerie says that Julien is a monster and bringing him back will destroy them all, and basically this is not going to be a good thing at all. So she says Lily is blinded by love, and obviously we know that Julien is obviously head over heels in love with Valerie. If he's back, it's going to make things even worse for Stefan and Valerie than they are. So Lily says that Valerie is lying. Damon asks what they're missing and asks who this guy is. Lily says this is the love of her life and the one she's waited for. She says he makes her better. She asks Damon if he gets that. He says he does. Valerie tells Beau to stop and says Julien will ruin them, but they take the coffin out. Valerie tells Damon and Stefan that Lily gave Kai the idea to put away in that Sleeping Beauty spell. And Damon grabs his mother by the throat because now he's realizing that his mother is the reason that his girlfriend is asleep right now. So, Beau comes at him to defend her. Bonnie and Enzo hide in the room. She magically seals the door. Bonnie says to give her the stone back. Enzo asks why she wants it. She explains what it is, and he says Julian's soul is there. Bonnie says she doesn't want Lily to have it, so she doesn't bring her back her vampire boyfriend. Bonnie says Oscar is coming. He bursts into the door and chokes her. She tells him Enzo has it and runs out while Oscar is focused on Enzo. Stefan calls out to Valerie in the wake of the destruction, and Stefan then tells Damon to calm down, but he wants to rip out their mother's heart for what she did to Elena. And Damon says screw his new leaf. He won't let his mother walk away after what she did. He is going after her. Now it makes sense why, the flash forwards are starting to make sense now. Of course, in the flash forwards, we've seen a very dark side of Damon. It really makes sense now. Obviously, he's not going to let his mother get away with this, and Damon says he's good, tells Stefan to go on. Damon walks away. Oscar then beats on Enzo, demands the stone. Enzo throws scissors into his throat, then he throws the stone. I was really trying to figure out what Enzo was going to do here. If he was going to give Oscar the stone, if he was going to realize that it's bad, or really what he was going to do. Obviously, we knew he was going to do was in Lily's best interest, but for a second here, I really didn't know what he was going to do. He keeps coming, but then dies. Enzo reclaims the stone, saying finders keepers. Stefan finds Valerie and pulls wooden fragments out of her body. She says he hates her, and he says he just wanted to know the truth. And she says he still doesn't know, and she says she was coming back for him. He asks what happened, and she talks about, Julien caught her trying to leave, and this is all stuff we knew. And then she tells him that she was pregnant, and she says she wanted to tell him in person, and says they had spent so little time together, so she wasn't sure he would even want the baby. And she says Julien made sure there was no baby anymore. He asks what Julien did. She says she kept that secret all these years, then tells him she's sorry. And Stefan is stunned to sadness. He can't believe that she hid this from him. And he's obviously really upset because, he always thought that Valerie just left him, and now he knows why she left him. And Oscar then lies dead. And Enzo says that Oscar died at Valerie's hand 2 nights ago. Then Bonnie and Damon brought him back with this. Lily holds out her hand for the Phoenix Stone. Enzo says he's not comfortable with her bringing the guy back. He says he's asking her to choose between them. And Lily touches his face and looks sad. She takes the stone, says, please understand. Enzo walks away. And, she's not in love with Enzo, unfortunately. I do feel bad for Enzo because right now he's in love with Lily, but she doesn't love him, and he's gonna get screwed over by her. So Bonnie's boozing, then calls Alaric to tell him that it's not Joe inside her body. Alaric says Joe ran off. She explains her mistake and says it doesn't resurrect the dead. It's a stone full of souls. And Alaric can't believe it, but Bonnie insists. She says she put someone in Joe's body and she's really sorry. She asks him to meet her and Damon, but he ends the call and he finds Joe on the street and says he wants to talk. And she's staring herself in the reflection. She hands him the gun, says she has no idea how to use it anyway. She says this world is unfamiliar to her and she doesn't know him or even her own face. Alaric says she's not his wife. She says she doesn't think she is and asks who is she. Alaric says he doesn't know, but says she's not alone, promises to help her, and they will figure this out. And it seems like he actually wants to help her. And this is really interesting. He actually wants to help Joe, and I think he's actually gonna marry her. I think he's probably gonna marry her because she looks like his wife. And he's just that in love with Joe that he will take someone that looks like his wife, even though they're not his wife. And very interesting stuff there with Alaric. It seems like he actually is going to help out Joe, even though it's not Joe, obviously. So we'll have to see what happens with that. So Caroline calls Stefan to ask if she needs to change their dinner reservation. He says it's complicated. She says Bonnie filled her in. He says he'll make up to her missing their date. She asks if there's anything she should know about, and Stefan says no. He tells her straight out no, so that's gonna come back to bite him in the ass, because obviously Valerie just confessed the truth to him, and he did not tell his girlfriend. I mean, what kind of boyfriend is he? What kind of boyfriend does that? Seriously, I don't know why he did that. So they agree to see each other tomorrow. He's with Valerie still, and he says he's sad about what was taken from him. Says he's going to kill Julien for what she did. He says he's sorry she went through this alone. She says she wanted to tell him, then she died. She says she killed herself and didn't know she had vampire blood in her system. She says she was a far cry from the girl he met at the fair when she took her own life. She says it's funny how one event can change her own life. She asks him not to tell anyone, he promises. Stefan says he would have wanted that child with her, and he tells her to choose a guest room, and she can stay the night, but Valerie says she needs to run far and fast. He says Damon won't let Lily get her hands on the stone. He promises to kill Julien if Lily brings him back, and at that moment, Lily is raising Oscar. Damon tells Bonnie that Lily was the brains behind Kai's torture spell against Elena. Bonnie is furious too because they fall for her tricks, and Lily and the other heretics work the spell on Julien. Damon says he wants Lily to have Julien in her arms and let Lily taste true happiness. Julien's eyes open. Lily says his name as if it's him. He speaks his name, pulls her to him. Damon says he's going to rip Julien's head right in front of her and break her spirit. Bonnie says so much for his new leaf. Bonnie says he's not doing right. Damon says he's glad that she's on the crazy train with him. They toast with shots, and that's how the episode ends. So, this is definitely foreshadowing things are going to get insane between Damon and Julien. I'm pretty sure the person after Damon is either Julien or Lily. It's most likely Lily, because I'm assuming that Damon's going to be successful with killing Julien. That definitely is going to happen. If you kill Julien, that really is going to get Lily's rage to come out. You know, Lily, I feel, has always been holding back her rage, and I really feel if he kills Julien, that's going to be Lily's rage, and it's going to be awesome to see. So, is Damon going to get away with this? I mean, he's obviously very vengeful when it comes to Elena, so I really feel like he is going to go after Julien. He is going to kill him because that is what's going to make his mother upset, and he wants her to be upset. So let's see what happens with that. Stefan and Caroline, very interesting. The fact that he did not tell her about Valerie's confession is very interesting, and I don't really know what's going to happen between them, because obviously she's his girlfriend. He should have told her. He did not tell her, and this is going to be really bad for them, because obviously, this is something that she probably should know, and he has not told her, and again, it's going to be really bad for them, so we'll have to see what happens with that. And then I guess the only other thing to talk about is really Alaric. Alaric, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him, because he obviously wants to help Joe. Even though this isn't Joe, he wants to help this person that looks like his wife, because I think he just loves her that much that he'll take what he can get, and that's why he's going to help her out. I think that he's probably going to marry her, so we'll have to see what happens with that. I feel so bad for Enzo, but knowing that he ends up with Bonnie is very interesting. I could understand why. You know, Bonnie and Enzo wants someone that he can't have, and Bonnie is all alone. So I can understand why these two come together. I mean, most people want Bonnie and Damon together. No, I do not want these two together ever. I want them as friends, and that's it. Bonnie and Damon are best friends. They are not anything else. They are not lovers. They are best friends, and Bonnie and Enzo, I really feel what's going to happen is that, you know, it's just going to be out of pure, they don't know where else to go. They have each other, they get close, and then that's what happens to them. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I thought this was by far the best episode of the season. I absolutely loved this episode. Definitely, I thought it was really great. Valerie and Stefan, very, very interesting. I don't know if they're getting closer, if this was really bad what Caroline did, but I really feel that Valerie's going to try to get back with Stefan. It really seems like she's going to try to do that. We'll have to see what happens with that, but let me know what you guys saw this episode, and I thought this was by far best episode of the season. Like I said, definitely the strongest one so far. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode. Actually, no, will be for tonight's episode of the Nick, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.